I do hear this a lot these days. A lot.
The world's getting ready to end. Brace yourselves.
What do I say? Just relax. Just relax. Take a sip of tea. Not bad. That is a citrus orange herbal tea, non-caffeinated. Not bad. That's right. Just relax. Drink it in. Think clearly. And that's what I want you to do with your food storage as well. Welcome to a feature-length Nutnfancy exclusive video on food storage and preparing your food stuff. Is the world going to end? Well, define that. It's hard to say. I mean, economic collapse, it's not looking pretty. It's not looking good. It's not looking hopeful. There is that. I've always said it's not a matter if it's going to happen, but when. As far as the world just falling apart, Armageddon, stuff like that. I'm no prophet. I'm just some goofball on YouTube and Rumble and YouTube. Subscribe to those feeds, please. I would say we have a ways to go. We have a ways to go. We've got some gas in the gas tank. That's not to say we aren't preparing. That's what this video is about, getting you guys ready for your food stuff. I think a lot of focus for people who think like you and I is, again, on the glamorous stuff, weapons. That's what my viewers like. They like gun reviews, and so I keep doing them. I like doing gun reviews, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more to it than that. I would say your foundation for personal preparedness is personal righteousness. No kidding. Be right with God. That counts more than anything, more than any gun you'd have, any food storage you'd have laid up, any bug out location you have. Keep the commandments, be a good person, be kind to others, do what Christ would do in a given situation. That is our foundation for preparedness. I hope you can agree with that. Yeah, time for another sip of tea as I relax here in the bunker. Yeah, I know, I've got some gnarly cold sore there. Time to put a patch on this, by the way. I know, a gnarly cold sore, and I don't care. I don't care.
Nutnfancy, I love how you've given up on your personal appearance.
Well, that might be a little bit strong, but yeah, I generally just do what I do, and the show goes on, cold sore or not. Yeah, I know it's gross to look at, but again, I don't really care. Oh, where were we? Excuse me. We were talking about the importance of personal righteousness. And for you guys that don't believe in God, I don't apologize. I do. It's the foundation of everything I say and do. I'm not perfect. I have a lot of problems in my life, for sure. There's things that I do that are probably unrighteous and unjust, but I do work on it. And so before we get going in the temporal side of things, food storage, I would hope that you do the same. I'm not going to preach about it. I don't do that to you guys. I just mention it briefly, and I'm telling you that it's freaking important. Really, really important. Now, a long time ago, I did a video. It was called Many Shall Die for Want of Thirst. This one will be called Many Shall Die for Want of Food. Is that a true thing? Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. There will be people in this country, the United States of America, that will die for want of food. The worst thing about our modern society is so many people live hand to mouth. They don't have any food in their apartment, in their condominium, in their house, and they go out and purchase it sometimes daily. Most people, I think, go week to week. They'll purchase groceries for the week, and they'll have a few things in, their pantries, in their cabinets. And I think most of middle class to lower middle class America will have things stored up. They'll have soups, They'll have some pasta stored up. They'll have maybe dried milk stored up. Usually not even that. And they can go, excuse me, they can get by for a week. But there's a lot of people that literally live hand to mouth. And they are ignorant about how delicate our society is and how quickly the food chain that is reliant upon a certain delivery system and petroleum products, not electricity, but petroleum products like gasoline and oils to be delivered. We have seen in recent years the grocery stores go bare with certain commodities. We will see that again. Yeah, I do think people will starve in this country for lack of preparation. Now, the funny thing is if you talk about this to a normie, I call them huans, head up ass normies, because that's literally what they are. They have their head up their ass. They don't look outwardly. They just basically concern themselves with making a little bit of money and pleasuring themselves all the time. But if you talk to them about the necessity of a food storage program, they're going to look at you like you're some far right winger. Now, I think the COVID crisis, the scamdemic, opened some people's minds. But the thing is in this country, we have such a short memory. Not you and I. We remember everything. But Huans, they forget everything. I think most of them have forgot about all the lockdowns, the nonsense, the masking, all the lies told to us about the scamdemic. They've forgotten a lot of that. And so they've gone back to their normal lives of living a short-term existence without any preparations. And they usually will look at people like us as being radicals, when in fact, guess who's going to come knocking on our door asking for assistance? Whether it's due to roving gangs and without rule of law who will go neighborhood to neighborhood, raping, pillaging, killing, I'm not making any of that up, looking for whatever resources they can get and using whatever means they need to do to get them, guess whose door is going to get knocked on? That Huan has come rapping on your door with his ponytail, and his Tesla will be discharged because the electrical grid will be long gone, and he'll ask for help. Now, I may circle back and talk a little bit about that, but my point in saying this is I would say the vast majority of Americans do not have a food storage. They do not think in long-term ways about the lack of food and the delicacy of our food supply. Have you gone to the market lately, by the way, and seen regularly stocked commodities, vegetables, produce, dry goods, canned goods, and they're gone? That is a hint to you. That is a hint to you that things are not back to normal, that the supply chain is still struggling to achieve normality again. Will it ever? You add in economic collapse. We have banks collapsing now. If that starts into a chain reaction and people start losing their jobs, there's nowhere to go to work, the transportation starts shutting down, the delivery of petroleum supplies starts shutting down, things are going to get interesting very quickly. Now, is this Armageddon or is it short term? I would say it's probably not Armageddon, but it could be very unpleasant. Kind, beautiful, and capable of big things is my mug. I just grabbed it. I just grabbed it. Don't read into it. It's actually Mrs. Nutnfancy's. I bought it for her. That tea's pretty good, by the way. I like it. So in this video, what I'm going to do is give you my personal focus and approach to food storage to help you guys. Now, I intro that way for a reason, how I said, oh, the world's going to end. A lot of people are saying that, and it's true. And it could. I'm not going to say I know much of anything, really. But relax. Go on about your daily lives and approach food storage in a very methodical fashion. If you have a lot of money, then I'm going to give you a pro tip of how to get a jump start on your food storage situation. But if you don't, just do something every month to improve your food storage situation. The theme in this video will be if there's different levels of food storage. Most of the stuff you buy online, and most of these places are only available online. All the other places like Emergency Essentials, Honeyville, they're out of business. They couldn't survive because Huons don't purchase this stuff, and it wasn't enough to keep them going. It's just you and I, and we're a very, very, very small segment of the population. But most of the stuff you buy online is going to give you a subsistence diet. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. It is a radical departure from what you are used to now. You've probably never experienced anything like this in your life. I have, and it is unpleasant. You're used to perhaps going out to eat here and there. You're used to going to your cabinet. Oh, I'm out of this. I'm going to run to the food store, get this. And you do. It's available. Those days will probably be gone for a while when all this cranks on. And so your job one is to survive through the calamity, whatever it is. It might be a natural disaster. It could be a volcano eruption. The caldera in Wyoming could cut loose and change the entire face of the United States and plummet us into the dark ages. Imagine everything covered in 2 feet of ash, blocking out the sun. Vehicles cannot operate. Aircraft cannot fly. Cars cannot travel. Are you ready for that? And that's natural. That's God-given natural disaster, which, by the way, raise your hand if you think that's coming. Well, I'm not specifically pointing to the caldera. I mean, yeah, it's overdue to blow, but I'm saying natural disasters, as Mother Earth gets pissed off about all the wickedness on her, watch out. I'm not messing around. I'm dead serious. You're going to see earthquakes, floods, famines, pestilences, tsunamis. It's another reason to have a food storage. But you're going to approach it in a very methodical way and understand you'll have to determine how much money are you willing to put forth to rise above that subsistence level of eating. And that's an important thing. And you won't hear this anywhere else. You won't read it on any blog. No one ever covers this that I've ever seen. Maybe I've missed it. You're going to have to spend like a lot more money to have a lot better diet in your food storage. And that will basically center on meats. We'll come back to that. But my approach has been for years having a 1-year supply of food. I'm going to tell you that is very difficult to do. It takes room to store it. Some of you guys live in condominiums and apartments. Probably not realistic for you to have a 1-year supply where you are at, but maybe you have some relatives, grandparents, your direct parents. They have a place and they are close enough to you where you can go to them and you could store your food there perhaps. If you can't do a 1-year supply of food, I want you to do 2 months worth. That is a realistic goal, even putting it under your bed in an apartment. 2 months worth is minimal. 2 months. Now remember, I've done a series of videos and covered you guys for short-term stuff already, and that is the Bug Out Kit series of videos. So that is when you can't stay at your place, you can't stay at your chosen place of residence, and you have to bug out, your BOK is going to come with you, and that is a minimum of 1 week of food. That's what I told you guys, right? Do you remember? That 1 week of food could save your life. I do recommend you guys bug in. I was one of the first people ever to start ranting on that. It's like, don't go anywhere. You have all your preparations at your house. Defend your house to the death if you need to. And keep all your stuff there. As long as you can stay there, stay there. There might be some circumstance that makes you have to leave, like an earthquake, a flood, and that would suck. And your BOK would come into play. But what the food storage program will do is it will allow you to bug in for long term. 60 days minimum, 1 year is preferred. Now, if you look up the caloric necessity of a man and a woman. Generally, it's going to say 2,000 calories for a woman, 2,500 calories for a man. A lot of the food programs that I have researched, that I personally have spent or wasted money on, they say they achieve that, but it's really kind of hokey how they do it. You have to eat everything. Like, let's take an MRE, for instance. The MRE has a certain caloric, and I think they've changed it. MREs used to be worth a lot more calories. But now, for that calorie content to be valid, you have to eat everything in that MRE. The coffee creamer, the sugar, every entree, even though it may not be something that appeals to you. And a lot of the food storage items are the same way, that they're expecting you to eat everything that's in there, and you may not like it. Again, you need to determine, let's just break it down simple. Do you want subsistence, medium quality of food storage, or high quality? Because those are 3 levels of money you're going to spend: low, medium, or high. Let's keep it simple. KISS principle. I would say when you're in without rule of law, when you're in a natural disaster or calamity, as a dude, and let's say you weigh 180 pounds, I think you're going to need a lot more than 2,500 calories a day. Raise your hand if you've been there. I have. Here's why. Because your modern life has ended. You don't do life the way you used to do it. Like, go to work, come back, watch some TMP videos, turn on the television, hang out with the family, play a little catch with the son in the backyard. All that's done. Now, and I'm going to address the men watching this, which is probably 99.9% of my audience. Your job is to take care of your family. Take care of your neighbors even. Not directly, but do what you can for your neighbors. And that is a full-time job. I've told you guys about my ice storm experience in Spokane. We lost power for 2 weeks. We went right into subsistence living. We did use our food storage. I will say the stores were open, so it wasn't like widespread without rule of law, but it was a good taste with no electricity for, it wasn't quite 2 weeks, but it was a long time. It was an eye-opener. And I wrote in my journal at the time, I was like, it's amazing how much of my day is just spent trying to put food on the table. Never mind, I didn't have roving bands coming to the neighborhood trying to steal our stuff. That's going to be more calories, but you're doing a lot more manual labor. You might be chopping wood, digging ditches, digging a latrine, hard labor, shoveling. All your electrical appliances are no working. So I would plan, if you can, on about 3,000 calories per dude and 25 for a woman, even more if you possibly can. That's what I would want for you guys. Now, I did mention some of the companies that I have previously covered, like Honeyville, they're gone. So it's out of business. I did a series of videos in 2012. I did some other ones in 2014, which were really good, actually, talking about how we could make meals out of freeze-dried components, and we put them in peat jars, and they can be ready to go. You just add water, and that was a really interesting, nifty thing. It was Lisa B in the day that did that, and she turned out to be somewhat strange, and she left Honeyville and went out of contact, just like many of the personalities that I've met through the project. I just can't count on them long term. But some of these companies were mismanaged. They're gone. Emergency Centrals is gone. So what I'll do below is I'll put some links to companies that I feel confident about, that I would purchase their products. And I don't know if I can have like a ton of links for you for food storage, but I'll do what I can do. Use my links if it, works for you and the kind of system that you want. On we go. Food storage. Let me take another drink and just relax here in the bunker, as I want you to do. Well, not like an alcohol drink. I'm just saying sip something. Relax, dude. And by the way, I want you to do that when all hell breaks loose. I mean, when I went to survival school as U.S. Air Force pilot, I had the best instructors. Oh my gosh, they were so awesome. And that's what one of our survival instructors, Siri instructors, taught us. He goes, hey, when you bail out, you hit the ground. As long as you're not in a combat situation, and you're not getting chased immediately. If you are, a whole set of different rules applies. But if not, just sit down, drink some water, think, relax. And the same thing goes with us. And you're going to inventory what you have. That's the first job you have. What do I have on hand? What do I have that is barterable? Huge. I've made a video on bartering items. And get busy. Get busy surviving and trying to bring back rule of law, because that's always our goal, right? We want to bring back rule of law. We don't want to live in a without rule of law situation. It's too much work for us. I mean, we have to do everything ourselves, and without rule of law, we have to provide security, put food on the table for our families, do all the manual labor. There's really no extra hours in the day because we're doing everything ourselves. When you combine in a micro community, which will be the first thing to emerge out of without rule of law, and that's my own term, MC, micro community, your workload will be lessened. And also, in terms of food storage, you may be able to barter and trade things to make your food more interesting. Because you remember that subsistence level of food storage? If you might have some Huons in your neighborhood, if they're lucky, they'll have a subsistence level. But they may have something interesting that you would like to trade for. And maybe you can trade some of your commodities for their commodities. Lo and behold, you just made a micro community. I might say more about that, and then again, I might not. Storage methods. Let's talk about the foods, types of foods that I myself have researched, have used, and perhaps have abandoned over the years. Pickling, I won't talk about. I think some people will pickle. Don't know much about that. Meat, salt, curing. That's more, to me, an outdoor, in the woods type thing, but I guess you can do it if you're homesteading, and that's a thing. So you're salting meat, you're using the salt to draw the moisture out, you're hanging it to dry, and that meat can store for a very long time. You need a lot of salt, and that is one of the key things I do want you to store up. You should have a ton of salt. That is highly, highly barterable. I have said this before. You should have a ton of salt. You might be able to get some fresh meat and cure it accordingly. I'm not going to go specifically on how to do that. This video is going to be feature length already. Another way of storing your food, and this is, in Utah, used to be very vogue, and that is home canning. So people would have their gardens. They would grow whatever they grow, zucchini, squash, cucumbers, and they bring it inside the house, and they actually have a home canning program, and they put it in mason jars, they boil it, they seal it up, and I'll tell you, if you can do that, it is a valid way to approach food storage problem. It is a very valid way. Here's the deal, and this is why I don't do it, this is why Mrs. Nutnfancy doesn't do it. It is a butt ton of work, and actually it is a lifestyle. It is kind of a homesteader style. And if you are home canning, people I know, and I don't know that many that have made it work for them, that is their food. So they're not going out to eat a lot. In fact, most of the home canning people that I know that have made it work for them, they don't go out to eat at all. They cook at home pretty much every night. They go down into their basement, they'll pull some cans off the shelf, and that is what's going into the chili. That's what's going into the stew. They're using their fresh fruits and vegetables that they stored up maybe 3 years ago, and they're circulating those supplies over and over again. And they replenish them in the spring and summer. Maybe they raise some rabbits. They use that rabbit meat. Maybe they raise some chickens. They use their own chickens. This is a lifestyle. This is homesteading, which I do think is awesome, but it is a ton of work. And I don't know anybody who has a busy professional career that homesteads, that works and makes a fair amount of money at a professional job. They don't have time. People who live off the grid generally have a ton of time. There are YouTube creators. That's all they do is create YouTube videos. That's their job. Their whole content flow is about homesteading, so they have a lot of time to do it, and that's where their videos come from. But most people who have jobs and careers in the United States of America don't have time for that. They don't have the land for that, and it just doesn't work for them usually. Now, Mrs. Nutnfancy and I did try the home canning thing off and on. We've been married 35 years. There was a time when we were canning stuff, we'd put it in food storage. And it would sit alongside of store-bought things for years and years. We wouldn't go down and use it like a homesteader would or home canner would. And lo and behold, 10, 12, 15 years pass, we have to throw that stuff out because we never used it, because it's not in our program. So when someone sells to you the idea of home canning, understand you need some time to do that, like a lot of time. You need a system. You need big pots. You need a lot of cans, jars, paraffin. You need a system. You need a huge place to store all this stuff. And those glass bottles, which are awesome, and they do store things a long time, they're heavy. It's a huge thing. So we don't home can. We gave up on that. It doesn't work for us. Next would be, we're talking about storage methods of food. This is something probably you're doing right now. You may not realize it, but you're doing a store-bought food storage system right now. And by that, I mean you probably have some Kraft macaroni and cheese boxes stored up somewhere. Maybe some canned beans, pinto beans, black eyed peas, which I absolutely love. They're a meal unto themselves. Seriously, a can of black eyed peas with bacon in it, amazing. If you can put a bread in there, you're good. And it's healthy. It's good for you. You might have some black beans, kidney beans, maybe have some cans of tuna fish. And you've been doing this. So if I were to come to your house and do a no-notice food storage check, I bet you have that stuff. How much? It depends. You probably have as much as you have room for. Here's what you're not doing, though. You're not dating that stuff. Now, you may say, well, there's an encoded date on the can that I could probably figure out. Well, it's cryptic, and I say you probably can't. As soon as I buy a canned good of whatever, I do month and year in a permanent marker, Sharpie. Month and year, and then if I can, I'll try to rotate it. Does a store-bought food storage system work? Yes, it does. How long can those cans last, Nutnfancy? Well, I think some people say, and I'm not the expert on this, but they'll say, oh, don't eat a can after 5 years. That's bullcrap. I just made a stew from because I was testing this. I just had some stewed tomatoes that were 9 years old in a can. I looked at the can. It wasn't bulged. I opened it up. There was no acidic corrosion on it. And I used them, and it worked. Was it the most flavorful chili? I forgot what I was making, chili or stew. No, I could tell it was older, but it was edible. So I would say 1 decade. Here's a big if you store them in a cool place like a basement, if you store them in a hot place like a garage where it gets like 90 degrees, it ain't gonna last 10 years, dude. It will probably be like 5. If the can hasn't bulged, this is the bottom line, according to me, it is probably edible. If you've ever seen a can that's expired, the bottom and top will bulge, and that means it's rotten. Do not use it. It's a system that can work. Is it the best system? You might think I'm going to say no, but the good thing about doing a store-bought food storage system like you've been doing probably is it's stuff you're eating already. So you're not at that subsistence level of food storage. You're kind of in the middle, maybe a little bit higher. You're buying things that you eat all the time. You like Kraft macaroni and cheese. I like that double cheese one, by the way. That's awesome. They just came out with that. Yeah, you're having that, and you're like, well, this is just like living. By the way, that store is really good, Kraft macaroni and cheese. As long as, we'll talk about this. Critters don't get into it. That's the upside. You can store some of the stuff you like. To include canned meats. Again, cool temperature, store them well. The downside is it's very heavy, and it's very hard to rotate through. It's real easy, and just theoretically, to talk about food storage. And a lot of bloggers do this. They say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. But most people don't have the room for a dedicated food storage area. And so in that food storage area, they're going to have like toiletries, other commodities, camping gear, and all this stuff, knife collections, gun magazines, guns, extra gun stocks, optics, airsoft, pellet guns, rafts, kayaks. If you live an adventurous life like I do, there's a lot of shit. And all that's competing with your food storage for a place to go, for a place to be stored. In your cupboards, in your kitchen, you only have so much room. So you can't say, well, I'm just going to use my cupboards and I'll just rotate it there. Okay, you're talking 20 cans of soup. There are racks you can buy that automatically you charge from the top and it rolls down and comes back. And so you're always getting a can that is the older can, so you're rotating them. I have found those racks take up a lot of shelf space with air because they need steel tubing to work. And I find the best way, the most space efficient way is to just stack them one on top of the other. However, it's hard to cycle them through. It's a whole job. Again, now you will say, oh, if it lasts 10 years, do I need to really cycle them through that often? No, you don't, but so you don't waste. We don't want to waste stuff. So let's say I buy a can of tomato sauce. I mark it. It's 8 years old. And then I'm just stacking new cans in front of it. Well, lo and behold, it will come to that 10-year point, and I go, oh, crap. I never used that, and I wasted money. It's stupid to waste money like that. So get your kids or whoever you have in your family to rotate those cans. It should be a chore, and they should do it according to date, and it should be done probably every other month. Just go down. Doesn't have to be a big thing, and make sure you're using your older product first, your older food stuff first, so you don't waste. But that's a store-bought can, boxes, and envelope system. It's hard to move too. So when you move places, that's a lot of weight. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds. But the upside is you're eating kind of what you're eating now. The next system will be buying in bulk. This is kind of like home canning, but it's a little bit simpler. You're buying in bulk, and then you get like these number 10 coffee cans. You get a canner that can like reseal the lid. You get some O2 absorbers. They're oxygen absorbers. Mylar packs, and you get your stuff and you put them in your Mylar bags. You suck the air out of it with a vacuum sealer, and you put the O2 absorber in there before you do that, of course. And then you seal it in the number 10 can. I'm a big advocate of that, and I'm talking mostly dried foodstuffs. But the advantage of doing that is that those number 10 cans, and if you don't know what a number 10 can, it's a big, like 28-ounce can like that. The advantage of doing that is those things are bulletproof, and that stuff in there is going to last a long time. Probably, I'm talking dried foodstuffs, probably 25 years. Now, you could experiment of packing certain things that you like that way and see if it lasts. But if it has oils, grease, fluids of any kind, yeah, you just need to go through a regular canning process to store it. Now, let me go back a little bit. Do I use a store-bought food storage system? Yes, I do, to a degree. It is actually my tier 1. And I don't want to complicate this too much, but my tier 1 is to buy and store as much as I can of a store-bought food system. Canned goods that I love, foods that we eat, tuna fish, dated. I do try to rotate it. I don't do too much of a good job of it. Mrs. Nutnfancy doesn't help me with it at all.
Why not, Nutnfancy?
She just doesn't. I don't know why. She doesn't. I have to do it. But I do try to store as much of that stuff up as I can. By the way, the advantage of me drinking out of my mug here is you don't have to look at my cold sore. That's a bonus. Okay. So we talked about breaking it down, repacking bulk items, all good to go. It takes work, and it actually takes some items for you to do this. You need a canner, vacuum sealer, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers. It can work. Others, MREs. I've used MREs in past long-term food systems, and it has not worked well because they don't last that long, even in cool temperatures. Now, I think in cool temperatures, MREs are supposed to last like 7 years. You'll be amazed at how quickly that 7 years goes by. And I've eaten MREs beyond 7 years, and they were edible. They didn't make me sick, but they weren't that good. So again, you might be able to eat a 10-year-old MRE if you're hungry, and a lot of people are going to be hungry. So you might hang on to those older MREs, and you actually might give it to people who are starving. And that might be a good thing. But looking to MREs as a long-term, cost-effective, year-long food solution, it's not, to me, legitimate. It doesn't work. Because the storage is just too short-lived. And on we go to my favorite, and this is what is my tier 2 level of food storage. FreezeDried. FreezeDried. Okay, and FreezeDried is awesome because, well, it's awesome in a lot of different ways. The biggest and best way is that it can stay shelf-stable, edible, ready to go for 25 years in a cool environment, maybe longer. I've talked to people who have eaten 30-year-old freeze-dried meals, and they were just fine. The main thing is no oxygen reached inside. If you have one of their Mylar pouches that got penetrated, even with a pinhole, all bets are off. You've got to store these very carefully. Again, maybe in a bucket, a Mylar bag might be better. There's one of those dates I was talking about. I do it on everything. Everything. So this, is this a Mountain House? Yeah, chicken and dumplings. That's a good one. That's a good one. We'll talk about that. So, lightweight, long-term storing, that's the huge advantage of freeze-dried. And think about this. You're not wasting money with a freeze-dried, tier 2 for me, food storage system. Now, if we go back to the store-bought system, chances are you're going to have some waste. Some of those cans are just going to go bye-bye in your system. You're going to forget about them. You'll find them a decade later. You throw them in the garbage. Generally, you won't have that problem with a freeze-dried food system. Shelf-stable, keeps forever. Also very lightweight. Well, lighter weight than cans or mason jars from home canning. Easier to move. Easier to transport. Maybe you do have to bug out. Maybe you have time. Maybe you want to save as much of that long-term food as you can in your bug-out vehicle. For me, it would be the Titan. Can you move all those cans in there? Would you even have weight capacity for them? In addition to everything else you're carrying? Probably not. But freeze-dried, maybe. You might bring some freeze-dried buckets in there, and lo and behold, it's doable. It's doable. Freeze-dried also has a huge advantage in some forms, not all the forms, in being ready-made. All you do is add boiling water and wait a little bit, and it's dinner time. As opposed to having to go to through a laborious process and making a meal, like making homemade bread. That's a lot of work. It needs certain ingredients. You know, what if you want to make this right here, chicken and dumplings? How are you going to do that out of your food storage? You're going to have all the raw ingredients. All of them are going to have to be ready to go in your system, unless you barter for them, and not rotten. Here in a freeze-dried system, you have a meal. It's ready to go. That's huge. Now, the downside is freeze-dried, at least when you go to mid or higher tier levels, is expensive. All good things in life are expensive. Generally speaking, there are a couple things that I review here and there that really beat that norm. You know, maybe I review a glycine watch that's like $130, but that is so rare. Most things that are really good are going to cost money. You're just going to have to deal with it. But if you want like a medium to high level freeze-dried meal system, you're going to have to spend some money on it. Now, we did this about 10 years ago, actually. It was about the time I was doing the Honeyville videos. There was a company, I'm not going to give them any promotion. They're gone anyhow. Another company that went out of business that I bought a year supply of freeze-dried from. And I will tell you this, that company was good. I mean, their food was good. They had, I would say it's not high level of freeze-dried meals. I think it's 2,800 calories per day, and I bought it for 4 people. It cost a lot, and I just sucked it up, and I was like, I'm going to have this as my tier 2, my fall back on, and I still have it to this day, and it's good to go. It's sealed in buckets, in vacuum sealed Mylar bags within those buckets, in individual pouches. Each pouch has an oxygen absorber. And it has a wide variety of cuisines there and meals for you. And that's my system. I bought that a decade ago. So, just on face value, I have another 15 years to go on that system. That's pretty darn good. So if you were to amortize it out, it's actually fairly cost effective for the amount of security that food system, the freeze-dried food system, is giving you over the span of 25 years. It's not bad. Initial purchase price, you'll be going, ouch, this sucks. But long term, you'll be going, oh my gosh, I have a food system ready to go. My store-bought one is still tier 1. We're using that daily. We're trying to cycle it through. I plus that up as much as I can, but down here is my tier 2. That's my core. My freeze-dried is my core. Are there disadvantages with freeze-dried other than price? Yes. It's not amazing food. So I've gone backpacking plenty of times. I've demoed this in the project, eating freeze-dried meals. I wouldn't say I look forward to eating this. I did say it's good, but it's good in relation to other freeze-dried meals. It's good in relation to those things. How's an expiration on there? Holy crap, that is outstanding. Look at this. It says best by October 2049. Holy shit. Look at that. That is awesome. I told you longer than 25 years. And I bought this, in 2020? So here we have Mountain House saying 29 years. As long as you don't get oxygen in it, as long as the pouch is not compromised, and it's in a cool place, not a hot place, you're good to go. No, the freeze-dried, there's all types. Even the best type, I don't go, oh my gosh, I look forward to eating that. It's food. It's put together food. I can eat it, but it's not like amazing. Don't expect amazing out of a freeze-dried pouch. It just isn't. Your mileage may vary. Maybe you eat chicken and dumplings from Mountain House and you go, oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat those again. In fact, I'm not going out to eat tonight. I'm going to go sit in my lawn chair in the backyard and I'm going to reconstitute this and eat it again. Okay, so Mountain House. Here's a box I bought. This I bought from Costco, and this is 2019. Remember, I date everything. So this one, let's rate this. So this is a box of, it has 3 granola, 2 scrambled egg, 3 chicken and dumplings, 4 lasagna with meat sauce, turkey dinner. That is actually medium to high level freeze-dried, bros. That is a pretty good system. And I forget what I paid for this. I don't think it was outrageous. I think it was like, I don't know. I hate to say a price. I'm going to ballpark $80, which is really cheap for that level of quality. And look at this. It says best by March 2049. I rest my case, dudes. Freeze-dried is where it is. This is what I want you guys to do, is get freeze-dried. And this is great. You get protein. You got scrambled eggs with bacon, chicken and dumplings, lasagna with meat sauce, turkey dinner. That is premium, dude. All it says is boil water, open pouch, add water, zip pouch close, wait 9 minutes, enjoy. It's another advantage of freeze-dried. I said that again, but I want to foot stomp it. You don't have to work hard in putting a meal together and just say, oh my gosh, I don't have yeast. I don't have this ingredient. I can't make this. It's going to be so awful. What you want to fight during these hard times that I'm referencing, I'm going to put some Neosporin on my horrible looking sore. You want to fight food boredom and food fatigue, and it is a real thing. I do remember reading that some people only had one thing to eat, and in their group, some people got so sick of eating it, they decided to starve instead. That is a real thing. The one thing you might have to look forward to in these dark, dark times when all, society has crumbled, let's just say the caldera erupts, and you're in your residence and you're just struggling to make it. You're living out of your water supply, which you should have. I talked about that. Many shall die for want of thirst. You're living out of your food supply. And you're just trying to make it till the world gets back on its feet. It's dark. It's bad. you look forward to food. That's really all you have. It's kind of like in the military. When we're working our butts off in the military, we look forward to the chow hall. Even if it was a chow hall, it's like, man, we hope we have this, we hope we have that. In the Navy, it used to be, I don't know if it's still this way, but on their boats, on their destroyers, once upon a time in their battleships and their carriers, their cooks were legit. They had good cooks and they made good meals. And they did this because they know that good chow is a morale builder. And they want to give good chow to the troops. And any good commander will give the best food he can possibly give to his soldiers. It's important. And so you are going to be the commander of your situation. And so you want to give the best food you can to your family. And so that means now preparing and incrementally, again, we're not going to rush at this and do it all at once, generally speaking, unless you have a lot of money. Incrementally, we're just going to make plans. Have you determined yet what what level you want? Do you want subsistence eating, mid-quality, or high quality? I know what you're saying. I want high quality Nutnfancy. Okay. I'm with you too. I want high quality too. I mean, that stuff I showed you is medium to super high quality. There's some great brands that do dehydrated food. Let me see. We've got Alpine Air, Peak, Backpackers Pantry, Mountain House. I've eaten a lot of Mountain House. I've had some Backpackers Pantry, and that was good. I've had Alpine Air. Hit and miss on that. Some are good and some weren't great. There's whole channels, by the way, that probably cover this stuff. But freeze-dried is it, dudes. It's where it's at. Here's what you can do, though. So let's say you have a store-bought system now. You have a Tier 1 system, and now you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, Nutnfancy. So I have a store-bought system that I eat out of, maybe not daily, but frequently. And then I need a Tier 2 system like you that's like the foundation of my supply. It's going to be long-term freeze-dried meals. How do I get started? There's a couple ways. One way is you could do it incrementally like I've done. I didn't do it incrementally until 10 years ago, and then I did that big purchase. You can do it incrementally by buying this stuff. Let me tell you a disadvantage of this, though. It's in cardboard. So if you're in a flood zone, if this gets wet, if mice figure out there's food in there, they'll burrow into it. This is not the best storage system. The best storage system for your freeze-dried is, like I said, in buckets. Inside the bucket are Mylar pouches that are vacuum sealed with oxygen absorbers. That is almost bulletproof. It's more expensive. So there are some companies that do sell 1 year supplies of this stuff. There used to be a ton of them, but most of them have gone out of business. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to promote them. But you could look at those 1 year supplies. And I did look at one tonight. And I will tell you, as I scrolled through and I looked at it, it was very clear to me that is a subsistence level of 1 year food supply. They are advertising that it is, 2,500 calories per day, something like that. And I looked at their entrees and it was very basic. It's like pastas, grains. I didn't see any meat-based dishes like I did with this. Mac and cheese, stroganoff without meat, potato soup without meat, Alfredo without meat, gross-looking spaghetti. It looked horrible. Chili mac, which is a favorite. And by the way, chili mac, as Mountain House puts it together, it's not bad. I like it. Chicken a la king. No, I didn't see that. That's a premium one. That's up here. Oatmeal, beans, and some just goop. Can you live off that program that they're advertising? Yeah. Will you get food fatigue? Almost certainly. Is anyone going to be looking forward to eating that shit? Probably not. Now, if you're able to supplement it with your store-bought system, so let's say you have that Tier 2 and you buy that basic system, and then you have enough store-bought systems, or I should say cans, that you can add to it, maybe some canned meats, okay, that's doable. And that's kind of my approach. So I'm getting as much food as I can, much variety and quality as I can, and then you can get creative and add to that freeze-dried. Maybe it would be like a can of chicken breast, which Costco sells, by the way. They're awesome. Those cans of chicken breast, those will store probably for There's like 3 cans. They're probably like $11. They'll store for 10 years, I bet. So I buy those frequently. And I keep those in my food storage, and those are pure gold. I mean, the chicken in there is amazing. Costco chicken breast, amazing. Amazing. I use it in that Chungking Chinese food. So I'll use a can, and I'm talking like not for food storage or emergency. I'm just like for lunch. I'll open a chicken can, and then I'll do the Chungking. Maybe it's beef chow mein or chicken chow mein. I actually strain all that shitty meat out that they have in that thing, and I give it to my dog because it's so bad. In emergencies, you'd love it, but it's so bad. So I use their sauce, I use their vegetables, and then I put that chicken in there, and I just heat it over the stove and put over the noodles or rice. It's really good. Really good. Now, you might get creative, and you might be able to do that with your freeze-dried as well. But generally, if you're going to get the level that I've shown you, you're going to be spending a lot of money. Now, I'm supposing you're asking me, how do I get started with freeze-dried? You can buy these pouches, and I actually do recommend it. And I'll put a link to like Campmore below. They have all the brands I talked about. Or you can go somewhere else, but use my links if you can. Buy these and buy the flavors you like, and then put them in the bucket yourself. So get some 5-gallon buckets. These are already vacuum packed. They're already good to go. You saw the expiration. It's like in 2022. I'm kidding. It's not. This one is, again, $20.49. So maybe you, as money allows, you're buying these small pouches, putting them in 5-gallon buckets, and then when it's full, seal it. Like, you don't have to, like, hermetically seal it, like, you know, the crypt in Raiders of the Lost Ark. You don't have to do that, but just put a lid on it. Now, you don't have to worry about the pouches getting a leak and stabbed by some sharp object and losing integrity. Just keep doing that. Keep an idea of how many meals you have. You might want to have like a spreadsheet, maybe just a simple written notebook. How many people are you trying to feed? Keep a tab on how many calories you have amassed with your Tier 2 freeze-dried system. And with that, ask yourself, is it enough? If you keep doing this and you do it every month, let's say every month I go out and buy 8 of these, and they're the top tier, like something like that. Sorry, I should have brought more to the bunker. We'll just keep looking at that one. You'll be doing okay. And next thing you know, you're going to have like 20 buckets. Each one's going to have like 10 meals in it. It's something. You know, frag it out, military talk, plan it out, and see if that's going to be sufficient for the people. Again, you might have some store-bought cans you can add to that. That's one way you can incrementally do it. Another way is how I did it. You just buy, and I do like this way too. You buy a year's supply, boom. You just get it. And it may not be perfect, but if it's a subsistence level, you can buy additives. There are protein packs that some of those companies will sell. It'll have freeze-dried chicken, freeze-dried beef. They're going to be expensive. And you can add that so you go with it. I did that, by the way. We have like freeze-dried beef, freeze-dried chicken, and I did it. That is awesome because even though it's expensive and it's a huge initial outlay of money, you get immediate peace of mind. You just go, whew. You grab your little coffee cup or tea cup, you take a sip and you go, okay, world, I'm ready. Well, you're not ready for everything, but you're ready for a disruption in the food supply. It's a peace of mind. You might go with a 3-month system as money allows, and then get another 3-month system as money allows. That's the 3 ways. So you can buy incrementally, pouch-wise, in blocks, or just in one fell swoop. Now, I am saying a year supply. I don't think that is outlandish. Some of you guys may be listening to that and go, oh my gosh, a year supply of food, that is so much. It is a lot. But this world is upside down, and some weird, bad things can happen. So don't expect everything that happens after an economic collapse, for instance, or a huge natural catastrophe is going to get resolved quickly. We now, in this country, in my opinion, have a completely corrupt government. It is ran by morons that have no moral systems, that have no guidance. It's not like the days of yore. America is a dying republic. I hate to say it. It is. And it's because of the Huons who have voted for this shit. And I don't think it's going to be easily restored until something really bad happens and people pull their head out of their ass. Sorry for the directness, but that's what I'm known for. I'm sure most of you guys agree. You're like, yeah, preach it, Nutn. That's exactly what I feel. We're going to have to see widespread, extended levels of suffering. I'm not advocating it, by the way, at all. I'm just saying that is what will wake people up. It is what has awoken people in centuries past. That we go through this cycle of prosperity and this wickedness, and all of a sudden it crashes, goes down, everyone gets humbled, and then everyone starts working hard again and quits doing all the stupid stuff we see now, the wickedness we see now. Yeah, there you go. Tier 2 should be your freeze-dried system. Now, when I put those meals in a jar with Honeyville, what I found is those Peat jars, and Lisa B showed us those. They're basically a clear plastic jar. They have a lid on them. You put an oxygen absorber in there, and you can put all the freeze-dried materials in there. For instance, like it was a casserole of some sort. It's like a broccoli chicken casserole. When I first saw those, I was like, oh my gosh, those would store for like 10 years. They don't. I found out those Peat bottles are actually total crap. They allow a lot of oxygen to go through. You're probably going to, and she even told us that in the videos. I think she's like, well, you probably need to use this one in a year. Really, the long-term storage of your freeze-dried stuff is in the number 10 can. This is the best. Oxygen absorber sealed up so it's not compromised. As soon as you open it and it's exposed to oxygen, you need to use that probably within the next year. I had like some dried broccoli that I've done, and I was using in those casseroles, and it worked fine. But after like a year, it didn't taste so good. It was still edible, but it wasn't like amazing. Peat, those Peat clear bottles are good, and any clear container, maybe a reused food container, it could be a juice container of some sort. Those are good for storing beans, rice, and other stuff, maybe oats. But oats, you don't want to expose to air. They don't like air. Well, let me speak to that real quick. I'm going to come off freeze dry for a quick and talk about the importance of bulk beans and rice. This is really important. You can survive off that. Most of the world does. I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the world does. They eat beans and rice every day, and that is their diet, and some are relatively healthy. So you have pinto beans and white rice. You can live off that. If you could add honey to that diet with all its vitamins and minerals, you're going to do even better. But it's kind of subsistence level. But I do advocate that as, maybe I should say, the foundation of your food supply. So store as much rice, pinto beans, black beans as you can. A lot of what we'll purchase, like I showed you at Honeyville in the day, would be bags. And as long as you can ensure there's no rodents around, there's no water leakages, those can actually store indefinitely, even in those bags. But if you're in a high moisture environment, like a lot of you guys are in the southeast, you're in a place where maybe you could get a flooded basement, a place where a mouse can get in those, you might want to transfer those to Mylar bags in a 5-gallon bucket, oxygen absorbers in there, seal it. Then they will store indefinitely. I mentioned people like the Huons in your neighborhood that won't have anything. They may come knocking at your door and ask for food. And I'm not against helping people, even in that situation. I would like to help people. But I'm not going to give them this. Sorry. No, douchebag, you should have bought this yourself. I made the sacrifice to do this. And at the time, you made fun of me for doing it. What I will do is have like a small bag of rice and beans. And I'd give that to someone and say, here you go. And that will keep them alive. And they can find a tin can, boil it. We're back to the dark ages. But that's another thing. And you can barter with that. So you could have, small thing of beans, small thing of rice. You could barter maybe some other things with that to your neighbors or other people in your micro community. You might want to consider getting a freeze dryer. And I'm talking like commercial grade freeze dryer. But these things are massively expensive. They're like, I think, I want to say like $7,000. I do not have one. I know someone who does, and they say it's amazing. And she freeze dries everything, like the meats, vegetables, fruits, and it's amazing. And it's just like the stuff that Mountain House does. But this is a no kidding way for you to amass freeze-dried food commodities for cheap. But the initial setup cost is enormous, and you're going to have a place to do it. And you're kind of back to that home canning philosophy of use, where you're doing a lot of work to make this food happen. So it's someone who has a lot of time on their hands, maybe someone retired, and they can start making this freeze-dried food. And sometimes, in some cases, she's made freeze-dried meals and like freeze-dried the whole meal, and for a certain period of time that will work. I have a dehydrator too. That's another thing you can get. Those are relatively inexpensive. They're just circulating hot air on trays, and they're going to dry out whatever you have. I've done a lot of jerky in the years past, and it was really excellent. I've dried apples, peaches, apricots. They are not freeze-dried, and they will not have the shelf life because they still have moisture in them. They're more for like snacks, maybe backpacking, short-term use. I don't look as a dehydrator as a long-term food solution. I don't think you should either. But as part of your daily life, if you have time, because it is a lot of work. Like when I jerk meat, it is a lot of work. It takes me forever. It's a big mess. I love the product that comes out, but I haven't done it in a while because it's just so much work. But it's not a long-term solution. Another thing I want to say, and this is huge. So we talked about subsistence level. Let's say you just spring and you say, I'm going to buy a subsistence level freeze-dried 1 year for one person, by the way. That's if you go 4 people, multiply that cost. They're selling it 4 times 4. Get ready. It's going to be a lot. But then I'm going to do some add-ons. Maybe I get more proteins. One thing that I did find that is very intriguing to me, what they're doing, my link below will take you to their canned meats. And I went through their website, and it was very intriguing what they're doing. They're taking really high-quality meats, chicken. I think it's like 70% white meat, 30% dark meat, and then good cuts of beef and different meats. And they can it in such a way that it doesn't have an expiration date. They're not doing any additives to it, any sauces or brines whatsoever. That way it can store forever. And due to saying it does not expire. And I looked at his website, and it looks pretty legit. I was like, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Their stuff is expensive, though. I mean, again, you're talking top tier. Backing up a bit, your food storage, let's say it's dark days, all society's shut down, you're living out of your food storage. I cannot tell you, and I cannot overemphasize the importance of you having meat in your diet. That one that I looked at was unimpressive because it was starches. It was rice. It was noodles. They did have oatmeal in there, and I do recommend oatmeal, storing oats up totally. But there's nothing like meat, especially when you're working hard and doing a lot of manual labor, especially in cold weather, especially as a dude. I do recommend getting pretty much as much meat into your food storage as you can. I recommend it into your store-bought system with foil packs of tuna. Those will store for 3 years. Tuna cans will store for at least 5 years, maybe longer. And then that canned chicken I told you about, that will store for 8 years, I think. Have that. And you're probably using it in your kitchen anyhow, so circulate that through. But in long-term thinking, this website might be the way to go. So you have non-expiring, or let's just say 20-year canned chicken breast. Huge. That's going to be such a barterable item. That'll be literally worth its weight in gold. When there's no meat around, and you might think, well, I'm going to go out and shoot a deer. Well, you have 10,000 other people have that idea too. All the wild game will disappear within the first week. All your wild places you're thinking about bugging out to, everyone else had that idea as well. All the rabbits will be gone. Pheasant, game birds are all blown away and eaten. Don't count on that, dude. You need a food storage. Yeah, get meats, and have them stored up. You will be so glad you did that. Really glad. Now, what I haven't really discussed is kind of the homestead lifestyle of having your own chickens, maybe your own pigs, your own cattle. This is a whole undertaking that most modern people with jobs, careers don't have. They can't do that. This is someone, that's their life. They're a farmer. they're a homesteader, they're making content online, it's A-okay because they have all the time in the world. That is their life. For most of us, we can't do that. Maybe you decide to get some chickens, but again, there's a lot of work with that. You have to feed the chickens. You have to have a coop. You have to protect the chickens. You have to clean the coop out a lot. You have to have feed for the chickens. Can you store up feed for the chickens for a year? You might be able to. I haven't really looked into it. I mean, having fresh eggs would be amazing during this time. Amazing. Having fresh milk would be amazing. And I think those homesteaders that do have dairy cows will be able to barter like nobody's business. A container, a gallon of fresh milk, fresh eggs. People would just give whatever to have that. So if you can swing that, do it. I cannot do that at this time in my life. Will I do it later? Hard to say. I can't say one way or another. And I think we're about done, dudes. Oh my goodness, the Nutnfancy food storage video.
Nutnfancy, I've really enjoyed it. I've been waiting for so long for you to do this video.
I know you have. I'm so sorry it took me so long to get around to it. But I guess the time is right now with everybody talking about the end of the world, right? I'm not exaggerating. I'm hearing it a lot, dudes. Yeah. Approach it methodically. Understand, by the way, once you get your food storage, there are threats to it. I've talked about some. Rodents. Don't let mice, rats get to it. Protect it. Buckets are your best defense. Moving damage, so you're moving it from one location to the next. If you have your pouches, they're unprotected. You pierce them. You just violated the whole integrity of that pouch. Expiration date is 1 year from when you did that, basically. Theft. Someone could find out about it, especially without rule of law, and steal it. You might have to use some of this stuff to prevent that. That, by the way, is a Palmetto GF3. Link below. Awesome, awesome AK. Love it. Lack of room is another threat. I mean, storing all this stuff takes room, dude. Wish I could change that. I do find that freeze-dried stores a little bit easier than everything else. And then age. That's a threat, too. It just can wear out and you might have to rebuy it. I can't tell you the peace of mind it will give you, though, when you have that food storage system in place. Maybe right now with your funds, your job, your phase of life, you don't have the ability to get a huge food system. Shoot for that 60 days. And you can use the store-bought system, which I described in detail, and then supplement it with a longer-term, longer-lasting freeze-dried system. I wish you all the best. I really do. This video is brought to you by donors to the Nutnfancy Project. Be one for the rest of your life. Anybody, yes, anybody, even under economic collapse, apparently, can afford $5 to $10 a month. Thank you so much to my donors. Thanks to you, whether you're a donor or not, for supporting me through all these years. I really, really appreciate it. Apologies for that ugly, ugly cold sore. Life goes on, and again,
I don't really care how I look.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you sub, hit the notification bell. Over and out. Best of luck in your food storage quest. Really. Bye-bye.